Today, I'm going to be talking about the 6 steps to secure the retirement income for a happy and secure lifestyle in retirement. So if you are heading towards retirement, just about to retire, or already in retirement, you will face crucial decisions about how to organize your income. These will be amongst the most important financial decisions you will ever have to take. The choices can be complicated and stressful. You have to deal with a number of unknown factors. These include, but are in no way restricted to, the following examples. How long are you going to live? How much money you will need year by year? How will your health be in retirement? Whether you will need to fund care fees? The future level of taxes, interest rates, and inflation rates, and what returns will be generated from the various investments in your portfolio if you remain invested throughout your retirement. Due to the sheer range of unknown factors, the chances of getting something badly wrong in your financial decision making are inevitably increased. This podcast aims to give you a series of thoughts about how to approach planning for your retirement years and how to work out answers to all the questions you will have to address. Plus, I will provide you with 6 crucial steps you should take to ensure your position is as secure as it can be. The intention is to help you craft the right solutions for your retirement and to support you in getting to the best income position you can achieve through this stage in life. And this is crucial. So where do we start? To borrow from Lewis Carroll, let's begin at the beginning. Any appraisal of your retirement income needs has to begin with an accurate summary of what you currently have in place. And before looking at your future pathway and all the possible ways of managing your finances through this period, you will need to address what you have in place today. This has to be all embracing and the view of your current assets and liabilities, current income and expenditure, and then an idea of your lifestyle requirements. It needs to include a view of your health position, your family position, and employment, business position, and prospects. In one respect, this exercise is like producing a picture of your financial position, a bit like a personal balance sheet, but it has to be mixed with a broader picture of your life and lifestyle. This is, if you like, a foundation stage, which when completed allows you to build your future financial plan. It's easy to underestimate the importance of this first step or to run through it quickly, not giving it enough attention. This would be a mistake. It is important to take the time to make sure everything is clear in this initial stage and the assessment of your current position is as accurate as it can be. The great thing about step 1 is that it is largely about facts and figures. Various aspects of your position will easily be checked and are already known. The difficulty starts with the assessments of your future pathway, because this is where the cocktail of the unknown factors come into force. So how do you go about tackling these unknowns? Well, the best way of producing some form of roadmap is to start with your future expected expenditure. In this respect, the future objective of any retirement income plan or planning should be to see if there are any obvious issues in meeting your likely expenditure. The fact that you will not know how long this expenditure is needed for could be a relatively insignificant one. And assuming that your income generating sources can sustain a lifetime's worth of income. This is step 2, estimating your expenditure in retirement. How easy to do this will depend on where you are today. If you are still 10 years away from retirement, then there will clearly be more guesswork than if you are already in retirement or closer to it. Any prediction of future expenditure could be tricky. For example, if you are a couple, then it is likely that expenditure will change on the first death of one of you. This is another unknown. When will the first death occur? Not a nice thought, but it's something we need to think about. What healthcare or other care costs may come into play and when? What pattern of lifestyle will be relevant? And how much will your expenditure need to increase to cater for inflation? Although the variables and the unknowns continue to influence the predicted figures, this is not a reason to avoid this step. In reality, expenditure estimates can be put together fairly accurately in the majority of cases, and the exercise of doing this is a fundamental part of a successful retirement plan. Once you have estimated your expenditure in retirement and all the variables this will include, you will then need to turn to the sources of income that you will need to rely on to cover this expenditure. As I mentioned earlier, this will vary from individual situation to situation, but the core approach to this should be consistent. If, for example, you have estimated that you need £24,000 per year from retirement year 1 and onwards, and increasing at a rate of 3% each year, then you need to check whether your source of income will cover this. And this is known as step 3. And the source of income are likely to be state pension entitlements, other pensions, which could include company pension, personal pension, workplace pension, etc. Then we have investments, savings, and other forms of income. Could be rental income, for example, which is popular these days. And it can also include windfalls, such as inheritances or sales of second properties, for example, or even trading down, if you like, downsizing as we call it. If your state pension comes to £9,000 per year, for example, then you now have a base to work from. Other pensions might total £5,000 a year. This means that you need to check if your investments and savings will generate the remaining £10,000. So if you have £250,000 in savings, you could then look at a 4% income rate as the required rate of return to top up your pensions. This step is probably the most difficult for us to deal with because there are so many different scenarios, and any example will just be that, a simplified example to highlight how the exercise may be viewed and completed. But it shouldn't stop you from doing it. The important aspect of this step is to bring together your future expenditure and your potential income sources and see how these marry. This exercise will expose any areas of potential shortfall and how best you might go about structuring your finances going forward to meet your expenditure. So far, we have outlined relating simple and straightforward methods of dealing with your retirement income needs. Now we need to address some of the bigger unknowns, which represents common threats to retirees. And they include not knowing how long you are going to live for. It also includes inflation, economic uncertainties, misbehaving markets, which can be volatile at times, certainly in the current period they are. And it can also include health problems. We never know what's around the corner. So let's look at how long. Financial planning would be much easier if we knew how long we have to plan for. The biggest threat and fear for retirees is running out of money in retirement. So the question of how long is a really important one. If you have an income in retirement need of £24,000 a year, then in theory, ignoring inflation, etc., you need £240,000 if you were to live for 10 years. And £720,000 if you were to live for 30 years. This is quite a big difference. So the longer you are likely to live, the more that you are going to need to fund your retirement throughout that period. The difference may be somewhat reduced by lifetime pensions. So the state pension, for example, is effectively a lifetime pension. You can expect the government to continue paying this for the rest of your life. If you can secure other lifetime incomes, then this produces the same effect. This is why anything that underpins your income is highly valuable. And again, why traditional annuities were so popular, because these offered certainty and shifted risks from you to the insurance company. If you are relying on savings and investments to top up your income, then your objective must be firstly to see if you can generate your income need for the rest of your life, regardless of the length of time that you are likely to live for. Back to the example I gave earlier. If you need to generate £10,000 a year from your savings, and these amount to £250,000, then you have a fair chance from a well-managed portfolio of getting that £10,000 return each year. If you have £100,000 instead, then it might be a struggle and you will be eating into your capital to meet your income. On the flip side, if you have £400,000, then you will surely be able to generate your income more easily. The task here, therefore, must be to see if your income sources can cope with the length of time that may be relevant to you. And we're all different. If they can, then you are in good shape. If they can't, you will have to adjust your planning accordingly. Let's look at the inflation. So if inflation is going to stay benign or as low as it is in recent times, although no one knows, but a sensible retirement strategy would assume that the possibility of higher inflation rates must be a factor. Inflation hurts, and it can hurt very badly. It can cause hidden problems, slowly eroding the value of a given level of retirement income. And inflation does not need to be rampant to have a significant impact. Even relatively modest levels can cause a serious loss of spending power. At an inflation rate of 3% per year, an income of £24,000 needs to increase to £37,400 in just 15 years. Another factor about inflation in the context of retirement income planning is this. The official inflation rate could be potentially misleading. The important question in retirement is one which relates to inflation in prices or costs that are directly impacted on retirees. The expenditure areas and items in retirement may be different to pre-retirement. This means a close eye needs to be kept on healthcare costs, care costs, and expenditure which is more prevalent in later life. This retirement inflation rate could easily be higher than the overall official rate. It is not enough to ensure that your income can cope with your current expenditure. It has to cope with future expenditure, which due to inflation could be a very much higher level within a relatively short space of time. Now let's consider economic uncertainties. Just a generation ago, interest rates were over 10%. I remember that when I bought my first mortgage. In fact, my first mortgage, I think I paid 15%. So a very high figure in those days. And we're talking about back in probably 89 then. The highest rate of income tax was 60%. Property prices used to rise and fall. A high proportion of retirees had company pension schemes. However, the economic picture is constantly changing. For many people, retirement will be a multi-decade period. In some cases, possibly 40 to 50 years. So it's likely that the economic backdrop will be vastly different at various times during retirement. For example, if you were to plan your income assuming current levels of interest rates and make no allowance or provision for a time when they might be higher, you could come unstuck. Interest rates, inflation, property prices, tax rates, and investment returns are all liable to significant rises and falls over time. And any one of these could derail your plans if you don't make provisions. To do this, you need to test any financial plan against various what-if scenarios and check how major changes might impact on your position. What about misbehaving markets? It is probable that you will be looking to asset-backed investments to support your income needs. You may have a personal style pension which you will be drawing on, or ISAs, or a portfolio of investment funds. Whatever your investment position, If your invested monies rely on the markets to generate a return to provide your income, then you must factor in that markets may misbehave and they can be extremely volatile at times. And the current period that we're in is a perfect example of that. In plain English, this means that they may not generate the necessary or assumed returns. Worse still, it could involve unexpected losses. Nothing is more dangerous to retirement income than a sudden major loss in value of an income generating investment portfolio. Nobody knows how markets are going to behave, and history is not a reliable guide. Yes, investments tend to go up over time, but there is no reason to think that periods of sustained downturn are not possible. Such periods are very possible. For many retirees, long periods of downward spiraling markets could be very damaging. And unlike people in work, there is unlikely to be any possibility of rebuilding value through further savings from income. As with the economic uncertainties, you need to stress test any income strategy you might pursue in retirement against assumptions on markets and assessment values having or behaving in a way which may not be favorable. Test your plan against the question, what happens if my investments lose value? And then look at large falls over long periods, and can you withstand this? We also need to consider health problems. The sad fact is that many retirees will suffer from health problems in their retirements. These could have potential expenditure implications, especially if this involves paying care fees. It is not unusual today for a care package to cost more than £50,000 per year. Even the best laid retirement income strategy can be seriously thrown off course because of ill health. The provisional rule changes around who pays for care and are still subject to consultation at government level. The current rules basically mean that anyone with more than £22,000 in assets will have to pay for their own care. The future rules may be more lenient, but it seems government is struggling to work out how this can be afforded. And again, when we are going through the periods that we are with coronavirus, that may obviously have an impact on the outcome of these rules. It would be reasonable to expect, therefore, that if you have any significant asset values, you will be expected to or asked to pay for your own care needs, at least in a large part. Of course, care fees are not the only possible healthcare costs. Ill health comes in many different forms, and there may be need for expensive treatments or operations or other complications, which could have a major knock on your income and expenditure. Step 4 is the exercise of looking at all of these potential factors, stress testing and asking what if in each case. Whatever financial plan you put into place to provide for your retirement income needs, you should always aim to make sure that as many of these future unknowns are created for as possible. This can be done normally by remaining flexible in your approach and finding a balanced strategy. Although the priority may be planning and securing your retirement income, it could be the case that you have other factors you want to consider and build into your thinking and planning. For example, you may want to help your children or grandchildren with property purchase or education fees. You may want to make sure you leave a healthy estate to your beneficiaries, your loved ones on your death, and or try to avoid future inheritance tax liability. Someone planning for their retirement income who isn't concerned about preserving their estate on their death could pursue a totally different plan of or strategy to someone where this is a major or material factor. Let's recap the steps so far, and they include: assess your current position with accuracy, estimate your future expenditure in retirement, consider all of your potential income sources, and map out a pathway, building in stress tests against different scenarios and considering other factors where your income sources will meet your expenditure requirements. If you have pursued each of these 4 steps, then you should be able to put together a financial plan. This is step 5, the construction of your plan of action. At this point, you should know what your future expenditure looks like, what your income sources to fund this expenditure will be, and then you need to start putting together a plan which ties these two together. The nature of this plan will be very situation dependent. For example, if you're 45 today, aiming to retire at 60, then the parts involved in this plan and what you need to prioritize, the financial products you need to use, the investment approach, and so on, will be very different to a 70-year-old who is just retiring now. Whatever your position, it is important that your plan is stress tested against the risks we have considered earlier and that all the factors are built in. Whether you use ISAs over pensions or a balance between the two, whether you pursue an annuity or a drawdown pension products, whether you invest in equities or in bonds, what companies and funds you will use, and many other relevant decisions will all come from identifying your position and priorities from those first 4 steps. We also believe it is very important that your plan is written down and committed to paper. This not only provides a clear picture for you to work from, but it also allows for good ongoing management of this plan. We specialize in helping construct suitable plans. At TT Wealth, we specialize in helping construct suitable plans, whether this is forward-looking towards a future retirement or whether you are already at that point of retirement. This is one of those life stages where specialists help, and getting the absolute best advice is incredibly important. The whole nature of retirement has changed over the past couple of generations. This is down to major increases in life expectancy, which makes the retirement period commonly a long one. Significant changes in the economic environment and a different set of financial products that are now available to individuals seeking to plan their retirement income. In some ways, the first 5 steps are all potentially irrelevant if the next step is either ignored or not managed correctly. Whatever plan you put into place, step 6 is the ongoing maintenance and reviewing of your plan and position. I have tried to outline how variable the different scenarios can be. This means that there cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach which works every time. Put this another way, you need to construct a plan which is unique and bespoke to your position and your requirements. You are different to the person sitting next to you. Likewise, I have also sought to highlight the extent of the risks and uncertainty that will be in place, caused by the wide range of unknown factors that could influence how successful any plan might be. You can protect against these unknowns to some extent during the planning stages by rigorous stress testing and constantly asking yourself what if scenarios. This will only work to a point. The 6th step involves regular reviews and renewing your plans to cater for these unknown factors as you move through retirement. You will need to take your written financial plan of action and see how it is progressing and performing, probably around once each year as a minimum. This way, if things have changed or look like they are going to change, you can adjust and amend as required. In this way, you are reacting to the unknowns as they slowly become knowns, as far as this is possible. There is no magic formula for a successful income strategy for retirement. However, we believe that any individual who diligently pursues these 6 steps will go a long way to ensuring they are managing their positions to maximize their prospects. And if you want to combine this with our specialist advice, then you are going to have the best framework for getting the results that you desire and the ones that you deserve. So let's recap on the steps. So step 1 is assess your current position with accuracy. Step 2, estimate your future expenditure in retirement. Step 3, consider all your potential income sources. Step 4, map out a pathway, building in stress tests against different scenarios and considering other factors where your income sources will meet your income requirements. Step 5, construct a written plan of action and implement this. Step 6, review this plan of action and adjust accordingly as you go forward through the years. That's it for this week's episode. If you want help with this area of financial planning, then please get in touch. I look forward to you joining me next week, where we discuss a series of topics that will help you to have a new start to your finances. And as always, don't forget to drop me a message for the topics that you want covered next time.